Dit is donderdag aand en dit is tyd vir die Losgemaal. Daar's 'n paar tegniese gebreke soos gewoonlik met Eskom aan die gang. Baie welkom. Ons gesels vanaand met 'n paar baie interessante gaste. Net om julle te verduidelik, die Losgemaal is logies meeste van die tyd elke donderdag aand in Afrikaans. Tonight we're going to switch over to English. Obviously it's the World Cup coming up. We are going to be previewing Pool C, which has Wales, Australia, and the dark horse, obviously Fiji, that excited all of us this week. The two guests I have rounded up for us to assist us with Australia are friends of the show and guys that are well known in the rugby world. Firstly, JP Smith from the Lions, and then, as I heard from him beforehand, his better looking brother, Ruan. Welcome, guys. Great to have you here.
Thanks, James. Nice to be here, James.
Great. And then we also have, from all areas of the world, we also have Mr. Ruan Smith all the way from the Orange Free State. Ruan, how are you doing tonight?
Lekker, JP. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And for our two guests from Johannesburg, JP and Ruan, thanks for you guys. Listen to me. Thanks for your time, guys. It's much appreciated. And yes, I'm looking forward to some interesting chats for sure.
No, thanks for having us, Ruan. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome stuff. And then all the way from Wales, Ruan, I'm going to let you introduce your guest that you've rounded up for Wales. It's a great privilege to have somebody of international standard chatting to us tonight on our program. I'm going to let you do the honors.
Yes, thanks, JP. Her name is Ruan Nell Phillips. I've actually had the privilege to share a screen with her often in the past when we both were on our mutual friend Joe Shepherd's show, which was run from Ireland at the time. Ruan is from Wales. She's very knowledgeable. And since then, she's actually made her way all the way to the BBC, believe it or not. So she's held in our regard, not only by myself, but by others as well. Welcome, Ruan. Thanks for being with us. Are you well?
I'm fine, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's absolutely fine. I haven't done many shows recently, but I'm really looking forward to this and meeting you guys and sadly talking about Wales.
Brilliant. JP,
bring it on.
Look, Ruan, I must be honest with you. We all have been in, I think where you are at this stage. We've all gone through the building blocks. We'll get to that. I think it could be worse. I think you could be sitting in we'll chat about that, in Aussie or English camp at this stage. But at least there's a couple of more positives. So firstly, just to start it off, we've started this nice World Cup warm-up, going through some French dialect, and we've got our resident French expert Ruan in the house, so he's going to take us through what we've done in the couple of weeks leading up. If you're at the World Cup, the only stuff you need to be able to get around at a stadium.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't quite call myself an expert, JP, but yeah, thanks for the compliment. If you want to say hi to somebody, then you say bonjour, ça va? And then they will answer you, très bien, merci, which means it's going very well, thank you. And then if you could put the next one on, obviously when you're at your game, you're going to start getting thirsty, so you need a beer. So you ask, j'achète de la bière, where can I buy a beer? And then, true to the nature of the game, you're going to need to visit the bathroom after a while. So then you ask, où se trouve les toilettes? Where is the nearest bathroom or where is the nearest toilet? And then, just to move slightly off that train of thought, if you want to know when halftime is or when anything is, you just say quel mi-temps, when is halftime. So that's where we're at this week.
I say, there we go.
Seems complicated, eh?
What more do you need?
Yeah. It does seem quite complicated, but I think a lot of those French phrases, the way you pronounce them, get a lot easier the more beer you've had. It sounds to me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I only need the second one. Where's more beer? That's the one I'll have to remember.
Definitely. Well, and I mean, I'm sure the forwards on the field would like to know when's halftime as well, so that'll also come in. Great stuff. Guys and girl, I'd love to chat about Pool C. I'm going to start us off chatting about Australia, and I'm going to start off with Ruan. I'm going to ask everybody for their opinion. Ruan, where do you currently think, having played in Australia, played with a lot of the guys, knowing Eddie Jones and the way they function, where do you think Australia's mindset is at this stage, with the disastrous year they've had up to now, leading up to 8 days from the World Cup?
Look, I honestly think inside the camp they'll be pretty confident. It sounds a bit crazy, but if you compare the teams they've played in the last 5 games, it's the top 3, top 4 teams in the world. Top 3 teams actually in the world, in the top 4. So yes, they've lost significantly against the Springboks and New Zealand. But if you look, there's glimpses of their performance where they've actually played really good rugby. So I think that they'll take a lot of confidence out of that. I think that the squad they've got is extremely young. But the way I understand and I see it, I think they've been given the chance to play rugby. And I think Eddie's sort of, he's got something up his sleeve. I know that I'm definitely aware of he's got something up his sleeve. But I do think it's easy to write them off completely, but I think that they'll surprise us. They will surprise a fair few people coming. The test they've played, like the previous test they've played against, was tough, but there were glimpses of something good. And I think if they could put together 80-minute performance, that they'll be coming close to beating some good teams this year. And it'll be interesting to see how they go.
JP, looking at the results, I mean, they had a really close run against the All Blacks, that last game in New Zealand. I didn't think, I mean, this past weekend against the French, they were that bad. I mean, the French outscored them by 1 try, and then the penalties and discipline obviously cost them. But do you share your brother's sentiments, or where do you think Australia will be focusing on?
James, first of all, like I said, I think if you look at Carter Gordon, his first 3 kicks at goal, I mean, I think it was a 3-2 and a 3. It's mentally, I think when you're on the field and that happens, it gets you mentally. And my biggest concern is the combinations. It's a young team, like Ron said, but the combinations is just every weekend there's different back row and different props, and the combinations. I think Eddie is trying out the combinations that he's working with, but I think what I really like about Eddie is like he got rid of Quade Cooper and that sort of guys. If you don't perform, he gives you a chance, and he's not going to ride the bandwagon of guys that's been there. So he wants guys to play and give guys opportunities. So James, I think when it comes to, I think they'll make it out of their pools, number 1 or 2. But when it comes to playoffs and quarterfinals, I think the pressure is just going to be too much for them in those certain games.
Well, Rian, obviously, as well, before last week, we'd have thought that this would be Wales's main opposition going into the pool. Obviously, Fiji threw cat amongst the pigeons last week with the English, but I'd almost say that Fiji would lose, or England would at this stage lose against any world opposition on the day. It's possible. The English at this stage are in a bit of disarray. What would you think the strong points are for a team like Australia going into the World Cup? What would they focus on if they have to front up against Wales, Fiji, and the other minnows in the group?
Absolutely. Having before the World Cup, I'd have said, that Australia was going to be our main opponent anyway. But having seen what have they done, they've lost the last 5 games, but then they were 17-3 at half time against the All Blacks in Dunedin. And they gave a really good performance in the opening period at Stade de France last weekend. And I was really impressed with their scrimmaging. And I think, you've got people like Taniela Tupu, who's the Tongan Thor, Will Skelton. They're bringing plenty of new stuff into the team. And I totally agree with what you were saying about Eddie Jones. He comes out to the press. He takes all the flack. He takes all that pressure off his players. And it's always really difficult in the warm-up games to see what the actual plan is. They don't want, there's a lot of players out there who don't want to get injured beforehand. And so I think, to be honest, we're waiting until we see what happens on September the 17th when they take on Fiji, because that to me is going to be, which team and where they are actually at the moment. because, you know, they're number 9 in the world. Wales are number 10. Georgia's number 11. And Fiji is 7. So we're all very much of a muchness in the world standings. But you're right. Fiji is certainly at the moment our what we thought would be a hard but you know, ultimately successful game may not be so now.
Rhiannon, having chatted with you for the last couple of years, I know you're a very big Eddie Jones fan. I mean, we all know he's a master at strategy, is a master of planning. I mean, he's one of the greats. We'll chat about Wells along with Gats. I mean, those are guys that names come up when you talk about some of the great strategists in rugby. Do you think Eddie is mentally ready and getting the guys ready, having gotten rid of, as they said, of Quade Cooper and all of the old guard and starting something new? What would he be looking to achieve in this World Cup?
Well, JP, it's one of two things. You know, you're right. I am a big fan of Eddie Jones, but I'm also only human, and I'm beginning to doubt. Really, I am. His record with the Wallabies since taking over, he's played 5, lost 5. Now, you can explain away a lot of what we've seen, and you can argue a lot of things about game plan and fine tuning, and he came in late, you know, he's been offered a hospital job, the whole thing. Cliches all over the place. Fact is, it's 0 out of 5. Rugby being a game of momentum, that's not good. But in saying that, he is the master tactician, in my books anyway. Many people will disagree. Erasmus has got a pretty strong CV himself, but that's not the topic right now. However, I'm a bit worried for the Wallabies. Really, I am. I don't know what they're doing. Look, they are positives. They're there, but yeah, I don't know, JP. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. If you look at the bigger picture. The big thing remains is 0 out of 5, and now you're going into a World Cup. I don't know. They'll have to turn this around in no time. You know, if you look at the first 3 weeks of that pool, I actually discussed this with Ruan off air earlier this evening. Week 1 has Wales versus Fiji, and the Wallabies against one of the other 2 teams. Week 2 has the Wallabies versus Fiji and Wales again facing one of the other 2 teams. And week 3 has the Wallabies and Wales against each other. So there's no time to rest. There's no time left for the teams. There's no time left. It's over. But even more so for these, because the big ones, and I count Fiji in there now. Well, I always did, but even more so. They're taking each other on in the first 3 weeks. So they all get chucked in the deep side of the pool, and they better swim. And right now, the Wallabies aren't swimming. So there's that.
It does at this stage feel as if they need a bit of a lifeguard on the side. JP, have you guys spoken to any of the players in the Aussie camp, or is there any feelings coming from that side? I mean, you guys played yonks of games in Australia. I mean, and I know we spoke earlier with Ruan offline that according to me in South Africa, rugby is our first love game, and same in Wales. We've learned that tonight. In Australia, there's a lot of competition for rugby. I mean, there's rugby league, there's a lot of other things going on, but what is the feelings coming out of the camp? Do you have any insight into that?
James, when the Wallabies played against the Boks at Loftus, a couple of months ago, I was meant to meet up with Nala, but I got stuck at the beach. We had some car problems and stuff, so I was meant to catch up with him. But look, if we speak to the boys there, which we don't speak weekly, I would say once in a while we speak to them. It's more of a catch up between us and stuff. But I think they would be also. It's an Australian mindset, and Ron, you can jump in here. It's an Australian mindset of. They especially rugby environment, they keep to themselves and that sort of sense. And I think Eddie Jones will also push that side of things and everything now, we should stick together in the camp and nothing goes outside of camp, especially the way they are performing now. So, yeah. But,
Yeah, Japes,
yeah.
in saying onto JP's thing, the thing I understand about Eddie Jones, regardless of how the results have been going, he has a way to make players believe in him and to make players believe in what he's doing. And I think that comes down to if players start losing faith in what's going on and looking at results, that's when teams could go astray. But I think Eddie's got such a presence and reassures everyone that what we're doing is working. You can hear it on his post-match speeches as well. He's got a way of making players believe in him. And once I have a feeling once that 80-minute performance comes and the reality kicks in for the players, it'll be a different story. But we're yet to see that.
And Ron, you're 100% right. I mean, we both know if you have a coach that you really feel he's backing you and you've got that connection with him, I think it gives a lot more value to a team as well, and the togetherness of a team and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think if you look at Eddie's history, he comes into a team and he gets those instant results. It falls off after a while because I think that is the way he works. He comes in, he makes people believe in themselves, but then inevitably down the line, it may not be the same. Yeah. So he just loses that. Once he loses the players a bit, then that stops. But I think, Australia are lucky at the moment because he is still, he's in there and he's still exuding all that self-belief in them. So I wouldn't put him away yet.
On that, Rian, on that, you can see, like you mentioned earlier, that how much of the flack it takes for the players. And as players, you start sensing that. You start realizing that, look, we've got to do something now. Our coach is taking the flack and he's backing us. And subconsciously, that plays a massive part in rugby without you knowing. And yeah, I think it will be a tough pool games for Australia, but I think the performance they're looking for is around the corner. So time will tell.
Yeah, I expect lots of mind games between him and Gats coming up to the Wales Australia match.
Yeah, look, listening to you guys, talking about Eddie, I mean, and getting some insight from you. Actually brings it back to, I think that's why him and Jack White get along so well. I think they're in the same mold. They get players to believe and they pull in, at some stage they fall off the wagon, or at some stage it gets lost in translation. But yeah, Rian, I'm going to start you off looking at Wales. It's a good thing, I think, to have Gats back. I'm going to get your opinion on that. Wales have not had as bad a run-in as Australia and England. There have been a couple of positives, but where do you think Wales find themselves now 8 days before the tournament starts?
Right. I think when Gats came back, it was on the coattails of a really bad time for Welsh rugby. Pivac, for whatever reason, he had a vision, but he never actually managed to put that vision into play. And although there were glimpses of it, the old running rugby as opposed to Warren Ball, it never actually came to fruition. So we really were on the floor. Gats comes back. It was a surprise. I have to admit, because people do say you shouldn't go back. And, there's at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, there's a gate called Gats Gate, and he was given this gate. And then, the comments then was when he came back, that's where he may go out if it's a total disaster. However, he's been quite clear that, and this has come out in the way he's actually, sort of gone about putting his squad together, is that he's rebuilding a Welsh team. We've relied on the 2015 guys, 2019. They've been there for a long time. They were great. They were the stalwarts. They were our, so he got a team hitting way beyond their sort of their batting, because like Eddie, he managed to get them to believe in themselves, to play for each other. So now we've had several big guys, big seniors like Alun Jones, great captain, retire over the summer. And so we've got a relatively young team. I think the average age is 27, so that's quite young for a team, especially going into a world competition like this. So from my point of view, I can see that he's probably got an eye on the next World Cup, and but I also think Gats doesn't he's a bit again like Eddie, he's a bit of a gamester. He doesn't like showing his hands. We had hell of a battering against you lot the fortnight ago, but it was a totally inexperienced team, and I'm not taking anything away from South Africa,
definitely.
but there were some good plays by some youngsters, but yeah, it was a bit men amongst boys. So I thought we would have, a month ago, we thought perhaps us and Australia would be topping the group in whichever way, and then Fiji come out of nowhere, and that really have put the cat amongst the pigeons as far as the group is concerned. But we also have to remember this time last year, Georgia beat Wales, okay, under a different, slightly different regime, and it was all in flux. But certainly, this is probably one World Cup we're going into where we're actually, I just sort of think, it's going to be, it's a very open group, isn't it? Which is great for rugby, but it is, from you guys' point of view, a group where you've got a load of minnows just swimming around, sort of playing rugby. But if people haven't got anything to lose, sometimes you'll get your best rugby. So,
Definitely.
I'm hoping we're going down that way. We're giving some youngsters. We've got there's a nice combination of the youngsters plus some experience. If Falatau is fit, they've been nursing him all the way through. He hasn't played since April, but he's probably one of the only world-class players we've got left. But if he's playing, we got Halfpenny with his 100 caps, and Dan Bigger, what's he got to lose? He's announced his retirement from international rugby now from after the World Cup. So, hopefully he's out to prove a point there. So I'm hoping they'll do themselves, well. But reality says that probably my expectations are tempered. But the one thing the Gats can always get his team to do is play above themselves on the big stages, and I'm hoping that will come true.
Rhiannon, looking at Wales, I mean, the last World Cup, we scraped through in the semi-final just to get past them, and that's testament. Obviously, Gats was building a squad for quite some time. I mean, but where do you think, Rhiannon, at this stage, Gats would be focusing on going into the first game of the World Cup?
I have absolutely no idea. With these senior guys retiring, for me, out of the blue, actually, it makes more sense now that I've listened to Rian about the longer-term vision that Warren Gatland has. But at the time, it was shock after shock for me and for plenty other people. But looking at their first game, JP, I've got no idea. I think they probably, and this is going to sound cliched, but it's what I would have done. I would have gone back to basics: defense, forward play, and goal kicking, because that's what wins you games in World Cups. You can't go wrong if you get those right. So I won't be surprised if that's where Wales is going to be at, to be quite honest.
I wouldn't disagree. You've got kickers there. You're bigger, Halfpenny. I think that's probably the way that they'll play.
Building scoreboard pressure, obviously. Ruan, having played against the Wales sides a couple of times in the URC and looking at their strengths, where would you think they would start to unlock somebody like a Fiji or an Australia? Where would they focus on? Because Australia is not bad in the pack either. I mean, they gave the French quite a go last week. So where would they focus on, would you think?
Look, I think at the moment the scrum is struggling a lot. But on Rian's point, if you take out the previous players, I don't know, you must tell me, Rian, if these guys are playing, because I'm not aware of Ken Owens, Mike Phillips, Toby Filato, Jonathan Davies, Alwyn Jones, and Gareth Anscombe. Take those players, for instance.
Yeah, Anscombe's in the squad.
If you're ready to play.
Gone.
Yeah.
Palato, he's in the squad, but he hasn't played since April.
Yeah. See, but I mean, in the previous World Cup, you had those guys all in key positions. And in and around hooker, halfback, number 8, fullback, centre, those guys, they were all in key positions. And I think what Warren Gatling is trying to fill that void now. And by losing players like that in the following cycle, you need to find a new way to play, because your game plan used to run around those players, and they were able to break a game through for you. So now he's probably trying to figure out what combinations, also what's looking long-term best. And but playing again, I think what Wales need to do is, it's hard to say take all the teams on in the forward pack, because they're really hot and cold with the forward pack. And at the moment, there's not many leaders there. There's a very young forward pack. And for me, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the game plan should be, but they need to find a way, obviously, especially the Fijians. I think the Fijians, we'll get to them later, but they'll need to find a way to play that suits them, because you can't just go in and trying to think you're going to kick penalties and out physical sides if you don't have the cattle at the moment to do so.
JP, your thoughts on that? I mean, having played against the Welsh sides, I mean, they always come up with a fight. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%, James. I think Ron has said it all, to be honest. But I think, but Rhiannon as well. If they can stick to the basics, I would have gone in with them with a massive defensive mindset. I mean, that's something they can control. I would go out in that, and then maybe play territory and that sort of stuff. But I think Ron has hit it on the head.
I agree.
Yeah, Rhiannon, if we look at the dark horse, I mean, to be honest with you, I think 6 months or a year ago, nobody would have spoken about Fiji as a possibility of going through, because it was a given. Wales and Australia would look. Fiji always put up a fight, so you're going to be in for it. There's a couple of tackles flying through. Ask Derek Oghart how that goes. Somebody's head is taken off, and somebody's stretched it off, and there's a couple of yellows and a couple of reds, and then it all falls apart in the end. I want to ask you, Rhiannon, with all respect to England, but okay, I don't really like them, so I don't have to have respect for them. Was it a fluke this past weekend? Is Fiji a serious contender? I know world rankings, but when world rankings change at the drop of a hat. Rhiannon, from your side, what do you think of Fiji's chances of topping the pool and knocking one of the traditional bigger teams out of the World Cup?
No, I think they've got an excellent chance, and I'm going to give you two thoughts on this, JP, that I've got. I want to refer back to one of our episodes quite a while ago when we had Ruan Pinar on, who spent 3 years in France. And one segment of that episode we did dedicate to his time in France, and he said that one of the things that hit him hard, not only by way of speech, is the amount of massive Fijians in the top 40. He says it's literally every week you get run over by a Fijian that you've never seen coming from anywhere, and next week the same thing happens, and the next week there's another Fijian. They're just always there, and they're always on your case, and they hurt you. So, their physicality is well known. They've had a decent enough season in Super Rugby, although you cannot translate that into the national team, but it does go some way. So, yes, their physicality it's always been there, but I think they've taken a step up on it. The other factor that I want to bring in is the coach that recently left there, Vern Cotter. Now, that guy's a master strategist. He was behind the Scotland uprising a couple of years ago. Then he went to France and coached Montpellier, where he did extremely well. This is a guy that spent, I think, 8 years at Clermont, where they went unbeaten at home for more than a season. So Vern Cotter knows what he's doing now. He's not there anymore, but he was there until very recently. So many of the structures and the current Fijian setup is thanks to him. So they need to be taken very seriously. Yes, they did beat a very poor England, but they will not care one bit for that. They will tell themselves, listen, we've knocked a Six Nations team. England is a powerhouse in world rugby, etc. They will now be up for any opponent. Any opponent. And that self-belief is massive. So, yeah, they're going to bring it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, I agree. A confident Fijian team is very, very dangerous. So, yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in the 2007 World Cup when Tonga got their tails up against the Springboks. I mean, we ended up winning that game by 5 points. Everybody thought it was going to be a runaway. Ruan, from your side, I mean, looking at the Fijian performance, it's been coming for a while, and I think the main thing is they seem to have sorted out the discipline as well. There's not as many cards being thrown around to them as there usually was.
Yeah, I've watched them for the last few months. I watched them the Japan game, the Tonga and France game, obviously. And what I've noticed is in the past, the Fijians were wouldn't say happy to compete and come close, but you can clearly see the respect for the bigger sides, the first-tier nations, are gone now. They don't respect them in a good way. I'm saying it in a good way. Like, if you don't respect the bigger nations and believe that you can beat them on any day, it's extremely dangerous. And a team like that, that's got power, speed, everything, that they're fearless and don't have respect for the big teams anymore, that they've realized they can beat the big teams and they've come close against France in France. That's where the shift's coming from them. Mentally, they've made a shift and realized, why do we have to respect the big teams and only lose to them by 20 points and 15 points? And that's what's dangerous. They'll play against any side now, and they will not hold back and be reserved and go out there to beat them, and not to compete, but to beat them. And that's dangerous. That's why they're so dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what's also happened is that their set pieces have improved, haven't they? You know, it's not just playing rugby sevens speed that they play. They play every code the same speed, but it's their set pieces, their mauls, the scrums. They're just become a more rounded team, haven't they? Which make them very dangerous and very fast. And I think that's 100%. It's helped as well. You know, I talking to Renan before the show, these heritage players coming home now, you know, and adding that depth to these teams is making the Pacifica teams far more of a concern than perhaps to the rest of the rugby world, who have probably sat on their laurels for far too long. And I just wish it wasn't in our pool that they were going to come out and play, which I think you're right. You know, that the game against France, they were there and thereabouts. England, they mashed, didn't they? And that confidence coming out of those, you know, albeit warm-up matches, coming out of those with those sort of results, must be such a fantastic thing for them, you know, for their confidence. So, and we're the first ones they play. Wow.
Well, let's hope for your sake that they're overconfident and you guys can capitalize on that. I mean, that's also a possibility.
Penalties, hopefully.
Yeah. Keeping the scoreboard ticking. Look, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but looking at somebody like Georgia, I mean, is that just going to be a headache for scrumming against them? If you look at how they operate, JP, I mean, obviously these guys have massive packs. I mean, I think the only thing worse than scrumming against the Georgians is trying to pronounce their names if you're a commentator. That would get anybody going. But what do they bring to the party?
James, to be honest with you, I haven't watched much of Georgia lately. I don't know, Ruan, if you have, but I think for them it's just also it comes down to passion for them, and
Yeah.
you should be careful of them in the sense of how they start the game and that sort of stuff. So I think that's the only threat they will bring, to be honest. Obviously, I think they'll beat Portugal, but I don't think they'll go any further than that. Like I said, I stand corrected because I haven't really watched a lot of Georgian rugby.
I think you're right.
JP, if I can quickly cut in here, I've got a slightly different angle on what JP just said about
Yeah, me too.
the Georgians. But this is concerning Fiji. Look, this could it could possibly be Wales and Australia's saving grace. The Fijians they play the Wallabies and the Welsh first up in the first two games. Okay, there they have to play their best 23. There's no question. Okay,
Yeah.
they will, in all probability, have to play close to their best 23 against Georgia to beat them, because Fiji is good. We said that, but they're not that good. Okay, if they play a full second string against Georgia, they may well lose that game,
100%.
which may then see the Wallabies and Wales go through uncontested. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. For them to play their top players week in, week out under the pressure of the World Cup, well, that's open for discussion. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to bring that.
No, I totally agree. And like I said, like I don't know, I haven't really watched much of this, so I don't know the strength of the team, like the Gogotsas and those sorts of people and that sort of thing. So no, 100% agree with you. So it will be exciting to see.
Yeah, I just see from the point of view of Fiji and Georgia that that Georgia will look to spoil that running rugby, that fast game that Fiji love playing, and I think if the problem with Georgia is they never seem to be able to keep it up for the 80 minutes. It's very powerful, but it's very quick. If they can shut down a team in the beginning, which they did with us when they beat us, then they've got a chance. But if they can stop Fiji and just stop them playing, then who knows?
Yeah, I think if you look at all their top players, Georgia's top players, they all play in France and Europe. I think they'll be tactically smart. I think they'll feel at home playing in France. I think how they're going to try and play is, especially in a pool like Australia, Wales, and Fiji, they're not going to play too much rugby in their own end. They're going to try and strangle teams with their set piece and their maul, and they're going to try and play down at the other end. Because if they're going to try and play that type of rugby against the teams that are on the pool, they'll struggle. So I think tactically they'll be good, and set piece was they're going to try and strangle the game. I think the team. So I think they'll come close in a few games, but I don't see them upsetting anyone massively. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch them. They'll be up for it.
The nice thing, we were at the Tatabiki Ball, a show this week here in Pretoria, with Radio Raps and Poti and Kobus Visa on. And Kobus Visa, obviously, there's a lot of comedy coming with Radio Raps and all those guys. It was great. But Kobus Visa also brings some insight into saying, and I think it's similar to this pool, if you've got three strong teams or similar strength teams like you guys have in your pool now, Rian, then obviously the one just hopes that the other one slips up. I mean, so Scotland will focus to beat us in the first game, as an example. If they manage to beat us, they know the pressure is on us to have to beat Ireland, and vice versa. I mean, if we beat them, then the pressure is on them. I mean, and it's the same thing here. I mean, if you've got three top dogs in your pool, that's what you're basically going on. You just want to be in the top two. You just want to go through, and then with the relatively young sides, we're probably going to walk off the topic and get to the Springboks quickly before we wrap up. Rian, if you had to go through to the next round, would that be a successful World Cup for the young squad you guys have taken to the World Cup? Would you be happy with that?
Definitely. definitely. If we could get out of the group, I'd be well happy, to be honest now. Because I think that would just set them up for that'll be the next step for the next World Cup. Obviously, if we got out of the group, I'd change my mind totally, and then we could win it. So, but I would take, if someone said the Wales could get out of the group tomorrow, I'd take that, and I'd be well happy. But it's like everyone gets carried away with the dream, don't they? And but yeah, I think realistically, on the group with the three main teams, if we can get out of the group, I think. Well, again, once you get into knockout rugby, anything can happen, can't it?
Yeah.
It's all down to what happens on the day, and it's all tactics. So yeah, I'd be well happy.
Yeah, I mean, JP, if you think of the whole ad campaign in Australia, I don't know if you watch a couple of those ads, they're actually brilliant. Of Eddie Jones talking about we're not going there to eat croissants, mate, and the other one where he's standing at the door talking to the boy, talking to the dad. He says the Wallabies are useless and this and that. Obviously, they're not going just to fill up the numbers. But would Australia have the same type of mindset, or are they a bit more competitive than that?
No. I don't think so. I think Eddie Jones would, and the squad will definitely have the mindset and the belief they can win. That's just the culture of Australia, of Australian sport all over. So no, definitely, I don't think they realistically they would definitely think they're in for a chance to win it.
Well, that makes for a great pool. It makes for a great pool then. Ruan, your sentiments, the same thing. I mean, are they that competitive? I mean, it doesn't always.
You guys might laugh at me, but I think Australia make the semi-final. I think they've got a fairly easy pool. If they get through the pool, obviously, but they've got a fairly easy way to the semi-final.
Okay.
Compared to the other sides, I mean, South Africa, Ireland, France, New Zealand, only two of them can go through. Where in the other side of the pools, Australia have a fairly easy chance. So if they want to surprise people, this is the World Cup to do it, because they can't ask for an easier way there.
I think
JP, I just want to add to what Ruan just said. Keep in mind, should Australia top, whichever team tops this Pool C, in all probability faces England in the quarterfinal.
Exactly right.
Anything can happen. We know that. But surely, Australia, for purposes of conversation, Australia now indeed top this pool. It needs to happen first, but let's say it does. They will beat England in that quarterfinal in all probability.
Exactly.
Which then look past the semi-final. Whatever the result there, that means the Wallabies will play on the final weekend. Let that sink in. Imagine Eddie Jones at the press conference. After the final. You've got me until the end of this World Cup now, mate. That kind of thing.
I think you're right. The group, our group is made up of, it does show, even though as Wales we're benefiting from it, how daft it was to, create the pools so far out, so far away from a World Cup. As I said, we benefit from it, but it just makes a mockery then of the other teams who have got a nightmare job.
And you see it like this: if Australia by the time they reach the semi-final, if they do, the team they play in the semi-final would have played all the top tier teams in the past 5-6 weeks. They would have been playing each other and bashing each other, and physically, by the time they get to the semi-final, they would have played the best teams in the world. As compared to Australia, would have had a much easier run. Then anything can happen. So that's how I see it. I see it as a Australia. If they want to do well, this is the year to do it. Vice versa, Wales, Fiji.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good perspective to have. You see, Renan, that's why we bring in the people that know. Hey, we're just the guys that try and facilitate. I'm going to step off from Pool C. I must be honest with you, after the chat with you knowledgeable people, I'm looking forward to Pool C a lot more than I was beforehand. And I think that it takes away a bit of the jitters for our pool. talking about warm-up games, obviously there's been a lot of things said. People talk about momentum and having this and having that in friendly games. Just before we wrap up, we're going to chat quickly about the Springboks. Obviously, it was a great game on Friday night. I had my own challenges. I couldn't log into my DSTV, so I almost climbed through the telephone to kill somebody on the other side. I'm going to start off with you, Ruan. As a player, how important is momentum going into something like this? Because if you are winning, you say momentum is great. So it's a two-edged sword. If you win, it's great. If you lose, you say, but it's only a warm-up. So
I think with the top tier teams, South Africa, New Zealand, those guys, I think regardless, New Zealand will still have confidence. I mean, if you take our loss against New Zealand a few weeks ago, you would think our confidence was high, but the next time we played them, we beat them with a record score. So those teams, I don't think confidence will have anything to do with it. I think New Zealand will, if anything, say we beat them with a big score before they beat us now. Same with South Africa. I mean, I think it's a team that turns up on the day is going to win. Simple. If the big teams play.
Yeah, look, I think similar to Ron, but I think New Zealand is liking the underdog tag. To be honest, I think that's what's going to make them dangerous. Yeah, I just don't see, to be honest, South Africa just looks so organized. You can see every player knows exactly what to do. They, it's just, you can see they've been together for almost 8 years, or the most of the squad. So, I don't see, South Africa losing the World Cup if they play the way they played against New Zealand.
Rian, as a neutral coming out of that, I never actually thought about it, and we discussed it on the program a couple of weeks ago. Before the Springboks played the All Blacks in New Zealand, that main A squad, in inverted commas, hadn't played for like 3-4 weeks, and that obviously showed in the first 20 minutes. And it definitely showed this week with the All Blacks as well. The All Blacks struggled in the box coming out of a couple of warm-up games. The All Blacks struggled to keep up with the pace, and that is also an attributing factor, to be honest with it. How big a setback would something like this be for the All Blacks, would you think?
Is it me or Rena?
No, yeah. You're the neutral.
I'm the neutral. Oh, right. I'm just so impressed with the box at the moment. You're clinical, you know, you're absolutely clinical, and you just seem to have, I don't think it really matters who you play at the moment or who you're actually playing, what members of the team, your squad you're playing, you know, I think, was it JP who said that, you know, they played together so long now that they just actually, you know, you know each other so well, and we've had a Welsh team like that where, you know, you don't have to look to see where you're passing. You don't have to, if you knock a ball back, you know there will be someone behind to catch it. And, you know, even though you might consider yourself rusty, it didn't come over against Wales as you being very rusty, to be honest. You know, I just think you're a well-oiled machine, and I just think, well, you know, all the best to you, because I can't. France sort of they've gone from awesome to actually stuttering a bit. I think, you know, I don't know whether you saw the Scottish match. You know, Scotland again, dark horses, but they're asking questions of some of these teams that you know, maybe they know how to win. France, that's great. You know how to win, and you know the best teams in the world know how to win. But whereas, you know, going this time last year, I would have said, oh, France, you know, without a doubt. You know, you've got Ireland then who won a Grand Slam. They're in the stratosphere. But I just watch the Bokke, and I just think at the moment the other teams are going to have to play out of their skins to come near you, to be honest. And that's as a neutral.
It's good to have the neutral opinion. It actually brings us a bit more to being grounded. Ruan, your thoughts on the Springboks? What do you think would be happening, or how big a deal is the win that they had against the All Blacks?
I think it's big, but I think come World Cup time, game one against Scotland, that Scotland won't care about that. It'll be starting from scratch, everyone knowing what the stakes are, and when the stakes are high and there's a lot to lose, it's a different game. So, but I do think if the Boks have that consistent performance like they did, even playing 80% of their ability like they did on the past weekend on a consistent level, I don't see them losing. But to have that performance every weekend in a Rugby World Cup against Ireland, Scotland, and then the pool stages will be interesting to see if they can.
Rhiannon?
JP, hasn't it just in the past couple of World Cups always been a case of the Southern Hemisphere teams just stepping it up 6 to 9 months before the World Cup? All of a sudden, not coming from nowhere, but seriously taking that step up. And then when the World Cup comes, everybody asks, but where did these Argentinians come from? Or who are these Boks playing now? But we're becoming used to it. I mean, like Rian just said, last year it was all France, or the year before, and then Ireland took the Grand Slam. So everybody was talking about the possibility of those two teams maybe making it to the final and facing each other. And look now, the All Blacks, they've got, I wouldn't say they've got the aura back, but they're very close to it. The Boks, once again, feared. And Argentina is only spoken higher. The Wallabies, we've now discussed them. But the Pumas are only spoken well. So I think it's a matter of the Southern Hemisphere teams having now arrived for the party, and they will be there, very much. So I think we're going to see that. But there's a massive, massive asterisk behind Ireland's name this year. Those guys fear no one. Yeah. They fully believe they can and will win this World Cup. So it's going to take a special effort to get past it.
Yeah.
I must be honest, it does feel a little bit like deja vu because they've also been on top a couple of years leading into World Cup. So I think mentally that's might be the main thing. I want to close off quickly. Ruan, I've got a question. Christian wants to know when you're bringing in your vehicle. I don't know what that's about. But that's
Christian is my friend there. He works at the Peugeot. He always looks after us. And I'm supposed to go take him for the service, but I haven't gone and seen him yet.
Ooh, you're going to lose the warranty.
Like a Christian.
Guys, just closing off. I as probably one of the biggest and most avid Lions fans, cannot let, and I promised a couple of the Lions guys I would ask you guys, just a couple of sentences. How's preseason going? What is the outlook for the URC? I see you guys are putting in the hard work, and you are, two of my favorite players. Always so accommodating, always so great to chat to, and obviously the life of the game, along with Sean Raymond, who's got the scrum cap going. But if I start off, JP, how's preseason, and how's it looking like at Ellis Park at this stage?
James, like I said a bit earlier to you, I think we had a first 4-week very, very big aerobic block, which was mentally, physically exhausting, tough. But that's how it should be. Now we've moved more into structure, starting into contact conditioning, contact fitness. So I think the balance of this preseason, the coaches has done well, really well. But like I said to you earlier, I spoke to one of the coaches, and the way we train now compared to, I would even say in season or last year preseason, we definitely look much sharper. The guys are fitter, and I think that was the main goal. If you look at how we played last year, we lost how many games in the last 15, 20 minutes. And I wouldn't say it was because we were unfit, but I think the length of the season, you need to be fitter than you think you need to be. So I think we looking forward to the season. Few injuries, guys like Henko and those sort of guys still need to come back. But they're all around the corner. So, no, we can't wait.
Awesome. Ruan?
Yeah, no, on that, James, I think if you looked at the back end of last season, we sort of played in a different way than what we started. And I think we're finding our identity now, how we want to play the game. And I think it's exciting for you guys and it's exciting for us. And the players are all buying into our identity, how we want to play. So it's exciting times, I think. It's looking good.
Awesome. Great stuff. Great stuff. Guys, just to close off, I want to thank my guests who were with me, JP and Ruan. Always great having you guys on. Greatest guys you'll ever meet. Life of the party. If they're not scaring the crap out of each other, then or JP scaring Ruan, then they're busy training. Just Christian, you asked if we're allowed to talk about Morné Steyn, who's left the blue for the red. Obviously, if you go on JP's social media, you see he's even got the props kicking at goal. So obviously, Morné has made a difference straight away. I just want to ask Rhiannon and firstly, Rain, thanks so much for bringing your insight. We'd love to have you on again. It was great chatting to you. And we will, if you know how I feel about Australia, I'll definitely be in Wales's corner for Pool C. I can promise you that. I think the guys at Losgemaal obviously got me with that one to give me Australia to preview, but at least I could chat to my two friends. Rhiannon, are you going to give us a quick preview on next week's guest that you guys have for your preview next week? Also, a couple of heavy hitters coming in for next week's show.
Yes, definitely. And then I just want to thank Rian first. Rian, I've long since forgotten how much you know about the game, but I was reminded again tonight because we haven't been seeing each other forever. So thanks for your time and for your insight and knowledge. Much appreciated. And like JP said, we're definitely going to abuse you sometime again in the future and bring you on. So much thanks for that. Ja, volgende week is groot. Dis groot. Kyk, die Rugby World Cup begin môre oor 'n week. Frankryk teen die All Blacks in Parys. Nou volgende week, ons terug in Afrikaans. Ons het huidige Springbok Nicolaas Jansen van Rensburg op. Hy ken al die Franse spelers. Hy gaan vir ons groot insight gee op dit. En ons het vir Rika Nieuwoud van Tox and Chops. Sy ken die game, ek's baie impressed met haar. Volgende week is 'n grootte. Dis die aand voor die World Cup begin. Ek is bewerig opgewonde vir daai een. Thank you everybody and have a great evening.
Great.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rian. Nice to meet you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Awesome.
See you in Rodney Parade sometime.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
So,
Thanks everybody for watching. It's been a nice English version of the Losgemaal tonight. We've got a Super Brew pool. Go and check it out on Facebook. Go share with us what you want to chat about. We are definitely looking forward to the World Cup. It's definitely going to be fun, especially with all the knowledgeable guests we've been having. But yeah, enjoy and have a good evening.